Hey. Um, Listen, I got a lot of stuff going on tonight. This is not the pivot, but tonight we are going to pivot. You saw what was advertised, the effect of social media, and this may not be the correct title, but tonight we were going to do the effect of social media and the rap wars, particularly up there in Duval County, in regards to the rapper who was brutally murdered 2 Sundays ago, coming out of his birthday celebration. And that's going to be a show that we're going to do in the next week or two. We are pivoting tonight for personnel sakes, and we're pivoting, but we're not the Pivot Podcast. I like to think we're just as good. We'll have the big names, we'll have the big sponsors, we'll have the big crew, but I like to think we're just the same. I'm forgive me, I'm doing some things with the producer as we speak. But listen, tonight we're going to talk about something that's ultra important that's going on in our state and our nation. We're going to talk about all of the craziness that's going on with the Democratic presumptive nominee for president, and President Biden. But before we go on tonight, I want to talk about some things that's going on right here. Is our beloved Dr. Bracer will say, in the great state of Florida. In the great state of Florida, where voter suppression has been not second to any other ruby red southern state, where voter suppression, where racism through the ballots and the democratic process has not at all taken a backseat to any other ruby red state. And when I talk about those states, I talk about the states like Alabama and Mississippi. Dr. King talked about them. He talked about a state whose governor was dripping with the taste of nullification, drops of nullification and oppression. The great state of Florida has been that way under the Ron despicable regime that began in 2018. Is it 2018? Yes, 2018. He's in office 2026. Thank God. And so tonight we're going to talk about some of the things as far as suppression. And pardon me tonight if I am not the objective journalist that I have tried to be. I want to invite you to go over to Facebook and look at the post. I think I just kind of in view of what the Supreme Court did on last Monday, in view of what over half of this country, presumably, according to the polls, the support that they have for a particular candidate who does not have the care of our nation or others at heart. I just kind of had it, and I wrote what's tantamount to a book on Facebook. Go on my page and look to the Frederick Douglass meme, and when you go to that meme, read. I'm telling you, it's not going to be a short read. It's probably at least a 15-minute read. But I saw today a dear lady whom had grown up near. Whereas it doesn't matter. She was not an African American. She and her husband were missionaries. They were missionaries in the Duval County area where we grew up. Our dad ran a boys' home. We lived there till I was 13 years of age, and they came there, and they are now missionaries in South America, and they're well into their 80s. And I'm not going to call their name, but go into my page and look on July the 4th. I just kind of woke up that morning and was just tired of all of the happy 4th of July and all that. Want to see what's going on and what had just occurred. And these people came on and wrote a response that was ever so refreshing, and it encouraged me that I was taking. Since we started this show, by the grace of God, 4 years ago, we're going to do a big celebration next year. We're going to honor it before this month goes out. They wrote a real nice response to what I had written, and it encouraged me. And then I saw a person responded to theirs, and I have just been sitting back. I just saw it a couple of hours ago, and I said, do I want to respond to it, or do I just want to let it just sit out and just let it go? I'm praying about that. But I just the state of our democracy and how imperiled it is. And I guess I never thought, number one, I would see 2008 where an African American would become president, especially out of nowhere seemingly. And I certainly didn't see that our democracy, the thing that the Republican Party cherished. I remember I was telling this a group of guys today that when I was in high school, we used to, I'm telling you, I'm really pulling some things together, so just bear with me tonight. When I was in high school, we used to have, before I got to high school, they had these big whistles in the community, big horns. They call them Big Ben. And at 12 o'clock on Friday, every at 12 o'clock in our community, that Big Ben would sound, and it was a reminder that that's what would happen if this nation came under nuclear war. And at that point, the only nation that held a nuclear threat over us was was Russia or the Soviet Union. And who would ever thought that 2016 to this day, that the Republican Party, the ones who waved the flags and rah, 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 4th of July, independence and all of that, who would have thought that they would have succumbed to a leader who apparently is indebted to the president of Russia now, because he bows down to any and everything. And if he gets back in office, poor Ukraine will just go right down the drain, because he'll just cut off all of the funding and all of the resistance this nation and NATO. And NATO will be another thing that will probably be out of the past. He will probably try to be an imperial president and stay in office until he decides to get out. And so I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. And folks, so I just want to talk to you about some basic tenets of democracy tonight for a few minutes, and then we'll pivot over a little later and talk about, some of the things that's going on with the president and his Democratic Party. So let me start out by, and as I have said, I am not going to be the objective journalist that I've tried to be since we started this program. Not only have I attempted to be objective on this program, and there's certain shows and cases that I'll make sure and get people from both sides, so I could just moderate and kind of keep my opinion pretty much inward. But tonight I'm just going to kind of take the gloves off and talk about some things. Some things have got to be dealt with. And what I want to start out by doing is telling you about what Florida is going to be bigger. When we go to the polls and vote on November the 3rd, it's going to be bigger than voting for a president and vice president. Florida's going to have a U.S. Senator race. We have all of our representatives, all of our state representatives, and some state senators, and local races and local school boards. They're more than that. So tonight I want to talk about those things. But first I want to start out by talking about, I want to start out tonight by talking about, first of all, why we must vote. I've been talking about that, and in telling you why we must vote, I want you to know that democracy is on the ticket this year. It's bigger than any one person or any one party or any one political ideology. Tonight, democracy itself is on the ballot. So I want to start out tonight. I want to tell you the six amendments that are being voted on. When you go to the polls and vote in November, these 6 amendments go beyond the presidential races and these other races that I've mentioned. And thank you, Madam Producer. So I want to go over these 6 amendments that we're going to vote. These are statewide amendments to the Florida Constitution, so everybody will get an opportunity to know what's there. So it's certainly the presidential election. The stakes are bigger, I think, than at any point of my almost 70 years on this planet. But the 6 amendments are things that should drive us to the polls if we had our head in the sand, particularly the last week or two, and all of the things that's going on with the presidential ticket. So let me get these 6 amendments that we're going to be dealing with in the great state of Florida, as Dr. Bracey would say. I want to talk about the First Amendment. The First Amendment is that Floridians are going to vote as to whether or not we're going to vote to make a decision as to whether or not school board members will run in district school boards as partisan or not. So right now, that is in the state of Florida, that's a nonpartisan election. You run for school board, you don't identify your party. Now, the thing about it, if you snuff it out, and of course, know this, a lot of these, well, some of these amendments, the current administration, which is a supermajority of Republicans, the current administration has done all it could to keep some of these things from appearing on the ballots as an amendment. Some of these it has not. The Florida Supreme Court, which is dominated by Republicans, appointed three of these justices were appointed by this governor. So you know how they think, likely. But some of them fought through, unlike the national Supreme, the U.S. Supreme Court, some of them fought through to allow some things for the public to decide as opposed to the legislature, which would be a done deal. So the First Amendment deals with whether or not we want school board members to run as partisan, run as a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, or to run as nonpartisan. Let me talk about the pros and the cons of that. If you run in this state as a partisan, for instance, in a state that's ruby red kind of right now during this season, putting an R behind your name, and this is why this legislature has put this on the ballot as an amendment. If you run as a Republican, whether your name has recognition or not, whether you have any kind of reputation, people know you or not, as oftentimes we don't with local, particularly school board elections. What they're doing is wanting to put partisans behind so people can vote for you in the majority, because right now this is a majority state, Republican state. So I won't tell you how to vote, but I just want to bring this to your attention so you'll know. For people who just want to keep that on the low and just say, I want to vote with this person based on their platform, what they say they're going to do, as opposed to running as a partisan, you may want to keep that in mind when you go to the polls. You can usually snuff a person's political leanings out. For instance, Republicans are going to lean towards, remember, I'm a retired educator. Republicans are going to lean towards private and charter schools. Republicans have endorsed this governor's thing to take out anything that pertains to what they call a woke agenda, anything that deals with African-American history, all of those things. So if you see that, that's an advantage that they're going to try to do. So we want you to be careful of that when you go to the polls on November the 3rd, I think it is. Please remember that the First Amendment deals with partisan. The second one deals with the right to fish and hunt. Voters are going to decide whether or not to enshrine the right to fish and hunt is in the state constitution. In other words, licensing. Now, here's what's picky about that. You can be a convicted felon in this state and not be able to take a firearm, bear a firearm. And you know, this administration has gone crazy and has done everything just short so far. They're going to wait till this election's over. They've done the legislature, and we've been up there monitoring and making our voices heard. And we like to think that our organization, that Faith in Florida, kind of helped to keep them from making Florida an open carry. And an open carry state means that people who look like me can be taken out very easily. And any suspicious move, anything we do can be looked at as what was it that George, what was it that Zimmerman got away with? Whatever that was called, it makes it very easy. So right now it's not open carry. It's a concealed weapons. You don't have to have a license to carry a firearm. But if you're a convicted felon, you can't carry one. Well, suppose you're hunting. I mean, you can be say, I'm hunting. I saw, we live in the heart of the city. There was some construction going on. Coyotes were running around on the lake in the back of our property. They could say they were shooting that and shoot right in and take anybody out. Now you can say that's being sinister or being, cynical if you want to, or you can say you're thinking like Justice Sotomayor, who says that that with what the Supreme Court passed on last Monday makes it easy for a president to send a SEAL team in to assassinate a political opponent. I'm giving you the wide range of scenarios. So when you go to the polls, be careful when you vote for that. So they want to unlicense. Make sure we keep hunting and fishing license. The Third Amendment, there's only 6 I'm gonna rush through. The Third Amendment has everything to do with legalizing recreational marijuana. Now, I was in law enforcement 40 years ago, I think it was. And by the way, shout out and thank you to the young man. If you go on my page and you see that I had a law enforcement brother who's older than me, stood up for me on that long post that I did, and substantiated some of the things that I said about why it's hard to be this super patriot that many right wingers are hypocritically today. But legalizing recreational marijuana will be one less thing people that my color, Hispanics, and minorities, poor people will. And I'm not talking about morality or anything like that. But here's the thing. You have to be careful. Now, I don't smoke marijuana, but I'm told that marijuana that goes beyond a 2% THC rate will be regulated. That's not stated in an amendment. You think, okay, I just go and buy a lid or buy a joint, buy some reefer and roll up and smoke me a bummy. Well, if law enforcement stops and tests it and they find that it's beyond 2% THC, the law would have been violated. And maybe maybe the Constitution on the ballot will state it, but right now, not many people are looking at it. Just saying they run people. Yeah, I don't get arrested for carrying marijuana. But for narcotics officers, the risk of risking our lives trying to take marijuana off the street or take marijuana salespersons off the street, all of that will be reduced if that law is passed. But please understand, the law is passed. You still have the right to have marijuana in your possession that has greater than 10%, better than 2% THC. And I'm told, I just learned on a Zoom call that a person who was a staunch marijuana smoker says anything less than 10% is not even worth lighting a match to. So you know what to do with that. The fourth, there's 6 of them. The Fourth Amendment has to do with Florida's 6-week abortion ban, which is slated to take effect on next May 1st. So if Amendment 4 is passed by 60% of the voters in this state, which has been the trend across the nation, even in ruby red states, Kansas, Ohio, all of these states have gone along and voted against these abortion bans, these extreme bans. These legislators, one lady almost bled out and died because she needed a medical abortion. And I'm a preacher, so I'm not going to get into the spiritual aspects. I'll let you determine where you stand on that. But 6 weeks, and I know I'm not a gynecologist, but I'm told it's a 6-week. Now, as of May 1st of 2025, 6 weeks. As of no, a 6-week ban on abortions will be in effect in this state. And if we want that overturned, then that's going to be Amendment 4. And the trend has been, even in these red states, they have voted overwhelmingly against these abortion bans. And so you be governed by your faith and your conscience on that. The Fifth Amendment deals with homestead exemptions. Homestead exemptions in our state with our personal properties. You know, if you own property, your main property, you can get homestead exempt. And when you do that, it is the price is you get a tax break on that. And this is to maintain that. And I think some legislators are looking for ways to up the tax, to be able to tax us greater. So please take that in. If you have homestead exemption on your property, the property that you live in, and you can own 5, 6, whatever number piece of property you want, but the point that you live in, you have the right to homestead exempt it. You may definitely want to keep that as they want to adjust it for tax for inflation purposes. And so we'll talk more about that one because I'm not quite sure. I just was briefed on that and I was trained on that one, but that one I want to learn more about. Amendment 6, I'm going to talk more about it at a later date, also deals with campaign monies. It decides that we will continue the state matching funds for gubernatorial and state cabinet candidates. So currently, if a governor has, for every campaign contribution that comes in, the state matches it with tax dollars. And apparently, if that's overturned, then big business can really get in here and really just pour in as much as they can. The limitations are off. So we'll talk more about that. So these are 6. I know the one that most of us deal with is the abortion ban and the marijuana, the right to smoke marijuana legally or to have marijuana legally in the state. So please pay attention, study, do all your research. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. Go to your local newspaper and listen, look, and read editorials about these amendments. And don't go into that voters booth without having some knowledge of these amendments so that you can vote intelligently on that. Okay, that being said, I want to move. I was kind of wanting to get to the break. I want to move to the political season. This is a hot button Monday. We pivoted from what was scheduled tonight, and I have no guests. I'm going to carry this. You and I'll carry it. I need your comments. I'm on Facebook, type your comments there. Our producers are watching YouTube. They'll transpose them over if we need to. We are living in some very precarious electoral times. Democracy itself is on the ballot. Repeat that. Democracy itself is on the ballot. It's different than it was before this time at about 10:30 on last Monday, when one of the candidates, the orange man, when he came out and said that he wants to be dictator, and then when they put him to the test, I don't want to be dictator for a day. No, believe me, if he is elected and is the president of these United States, he will not select people around him who have some political, some military, some experience about the U.S. Constitution, which you can believe he has none. Just look at the court cases that he's involved in. Well, they keep changing the Constitution for him, but before they changed them for him, he was very ignorant of the Constitution. So he says he wants to be dictator for a day. Well, let me tell you, with what his Supreme Court has done, particularly with the one case with granting presidential immunity, and Justice Mayo was not. She was just sounding the alarm. She was not being overly by presenting hypothetical. She was not being an alarmist. She was legitimately pointing out to us what can happen and what likely will happen. This, if that man is reelected as president again, remember, people sat home in 2016 because the polls said that the Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in, and he didn't just. There was not a shoestring election. He defeated her rather handily. I know it's just a few thousand votes. I know he didn't win the popular vote, but those swing states, he kind of dominated them. That's why I say he won handily. And what he did was stuck this nation with the most extreme Supreme Court that we have seen in my lifetime. Last Monday or last Tuesday, we should have been celebrating the civil rights bill that was passed by President Johnson 60 years ago. But that has long since been thrown out. And so now we're doing everything we can to fight to preserve some enver of those laws or those rights that were granted by that bill that define what the Constitution at that point had already said, that all men are created equal. And now the Supreme Court, by giving this one man this power, he can say, well, I don't want to put anything in the airways out by talking about what he can do, but you can just use your imagination by what he or any imp of his ilk could do were they president of the United States. So all it took him was one term. Remember, Mitch McConnell held President Obama from putting his Supreme Court selection to the Senate for confirmation. And so that was another one that 45 had, and then he put two others and gave a majority. Now I'm going to talk about the Heritage Foundation on the other side of the break. But their plan is to add more to the Supreme Court so that it is a supermajority, adding 3 more justices. And adding those 3 more justices would take not only our lifetime is already shot, unless a Democratic president or don't have to be a Democrat, but somebody who's wisely thinking and has a Congress that will get behind them and increase the numbers to the court so that we can balance out some of these ridiculous partisan leanings that this court has done. It's a sad state of events in Washington. And for minorities, the Supreme Court has always been that one place that we could look to try to find some measure of justice, and it's out the door. So democracy itself is on the ballot. I'm gonna talk to Democrats in just a second, and we're gonna talk about where we stand in a second. I thank you for your comments. Let me hit some of these. Hey, Bernard, don't be mistaken. Trump supporters are Americans, the same ones who wrote all men are created equal, but didn't consider black people human. That's right. Now, notice, y'all, Bernard is a career service person. He's a retired Air Force person. Yay for the U.S. Air Force. He knew what branch of the service to be in. I'm telling you, we're around here arguing about age when one guy is 81 and the guy behind him is 78, and for the most part he has been just as not as lucid as this guy has been. Man, we got a lot to. That's right. DEI is another thing that's been wiped out. It's been wiped out in the state. Having a discussion with some gentlemen, some older gentlemen this morning. We're talking about how all things pertaining to African American history, transgender, and listen, wherever you line up on that, and I know we've always accepted people, particularly in our vernacular, in our church. All of our musicians have a lot of our musicians have been people who we would not say are straight. Let me just say it that way. And now it's a new day, and it's more out there, and whatever we want to do or say about that. But one thing I know, people are people. God made all people, and nobody has the right to be discriminated against. Wait till we talk about the Heritage Foundation on the other side of the break. Democratic rights and just rights, democracy is just totally it's at peril, and I just want y'all to think about it. Listen, let's go to break, and we'll come back on the second half. We'll talk a little bit more politics, then we'll talk some sports and stuff, make it a little bit more lighter, and take some of this doom and gloom atmosphere that we're facing. I almost said gospel blues or jazz. If you go into some of Frank Kaiser's record bars the record bar was a place that you could get records back in the days. You know, big LPs and Wax 45 records. That's the place you used to get records in Jayville when I was a boy growing up, and they used to talk about the wide range of records that you get at the record bar. Go on to talk about Go Get Your Creations that you just saw about. All of your virtual needs, they got you. you're covered. They pick you up. Not only virtual needs, but web building, everything web, they got it. I'm talking about Go Giga. Why don't you just hit their email and just talk to them, get a quote, see what they can do for you. You got a business starting out. I know we're in all kind of new technology. Whatever it is, they got it. So that's why I almost say gospel blues jazz. Whatever it is, they got it. They got you. Why don't you give them a hit right now? Go Giga Creations. More Go Giga Creations. They got you. They'll hook you up. Toya and Toya, Marquis and family, they got you. Give them a shot. I'm so glad to see my classmate, my good friend, Bernard Mason. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary, our 50th reunion. And we had one of the guests, one of the people who helped put that together. And in fact, she catered the event. We had her on like 3 weeks ago. That was an awesome show. Go back and pull it up and look at it. It was a great weekend. It was an awesome weekend. And I will forever be indebted as to how they treated my dear mother, who was one of the original teachers. I was one of the original, Bernard and I were original classmates who went from, back then it was, high school was 10th through 12th grade, and we were the first group to go those 3 grades there at Sandalwood High School. And what a great time we had. And he's my classmate. He's my friend. Awesome athlete, talented artist. Man, he could show Kevin Hart how to be funny. Bernard Mason, just a super guy. So glad after all these years, technology and social media has some positive things. Listen, I got a dog. I got to deal with my dog tonight. And Dang Dog. Tonight is Dang Dog. Stephen A. Smith. Hey, Stephen A. Man, you're coming up to your contract year. Your contract is due next year. And I just read something that you're wanting $25 million a year. ESPN has put a cap right now at $18 million. And somebody said that you're going to break the bank and you're going to get that $100 million because of those monster ratings that you put up on First Take. You got your own podcast that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that drops on YouTube and wherever podcasts can be found, and you can kind of let your hair down, dress in your red suit, and you kind of let it down, and you drop your language. You can be a little hood and all that stuff. But Stephen A. Smith, Dang Dog, man, I saw you the other day when you came on and just let the BET Awards just really have it, because they simply mentioned O.J. Simpson in memorial at that point in the show where people were remembered who had died in the last year. Stephen A., how could you not remember O.J. Simpson? Dang Dog, I know you might have your opinion. Everybody's got their opinion. Did he commit the murders? Did he not commit the murders? But Stephen A., remember this. Dang Dog, he was acquitted in a court of law. He was acquitted in a court of law. Yeah, I know it was a jury that came back later and held him liable civilly for it. But in a court of law, he was acquitted. Dang Dog, how could BET pass him up? What are you thinking? Why are you I know you're very opinionated and you make millions because of your opinion. And Dang Dog, you're able to take your opinions and make it really funny, humorous, and get your point across. But Dang Dog, did you forget that before all of that madness in Brentwood happened 30 years ago, we just did a show on that. Did you remember that he was one of the most beloved figures in America? I know he had issues with racial identity. I know that after the trial, he moved and became black again. I know he said, I'm not black, I'm not white, I'm OJ. But Dang Dog, the man died. Why would BET not bring his name up and show his picture? Had they not, they would have been, we would be pointing fingers at them and saying, how can you let other people point a finger and determine to us who we're not going to honor or who we're not going to remember at a time like this? He died, Stephen A. What's the problem with saying that he died in memorial? Dang Dog. Dang Dog, I've got to turn this phone off. People don't know I'm doing a show tonight. Dang, dog, I just wonder what you're thinking. I usually go along with you. I laugh at your jokes, but on that one, I couldn't go along with the Stephen A. I couldn't be mainstream media like you were being on that. Your opinion about his guilt or innocence was the wrong place to talk about him in relation to being remembered as a person of African-American descent who had died in the last year. Dang, dog, in the words of Morris Day from Purple Rain, get it straight. All right, had to have a little fun on a show like this. Back at it. Democrats, hold your horses. I've been away from the news quite a bit today, but I did see before I started going into all of these high-level meetings that I had to attend. Nah, I'm just joking. Before I started some of the things I did, I was looking at morning TV, particularly Morning Joe, and I was saying, hey, I wonder where that shark came from. That sharking emoji on Facebook came from. Somebody define it. Whoever put that out, give me a comment. Let me know why that got it, why that made it to the silver screen this morning, tonight. So, President Biden, let me read it first, and then I'm going to come back and comment. The whole the move has gotten bigger, it's gotten larger, asking President Biden to step off of the ticket because of the horrific performance that he had in the debate Thursday before last. After the comments that he's made, after all has been said and done, after staying up all night, going from Waffle House to post-debate focus groups, and then getting up real early the next morning and looking like the Joe Biden of old, there is an outcry in the Democratic Party to remove him from the ticket. And they're citing the polls. Now, before I read his statement, let me tell you about the polls. Many of us stayed home, not us. I didn't, I never do. Many people stayed home in 2016, and we got stuck with that orange man because we stayed home because the polls told us that Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. And so, because that's right, Bernard, it is too late for him to step off. There's no way he could step off at this late date. But let me build a case. Because of the poor performance, everybody simply overlooked Donald Trump did not answer one question. Not one question did he answer without everything referring back to the Biden crime family, the phantom Biden crime family, or the murderers that came across the border. That's how he got elected in 2016. That's one of the reasons we think we talk about election fraud. Wow, we already proved that Russia was involved in that election. But anyway, that's another time, a show another time. But anyway, Trump lied. Senator Raphael Warnock said that Trump lied every 90 seconds. He has had an absolute pass. He has demonstrated a discipline that we didn't think was possible for him to demonstrate. He is laid back. You haven't heard from him. He's just let the Democratic infighting be, and it has been horrific to the candidacy of President Biden. Let me read what he says, and I'm going to go on a little further. But you're all right, Bernard. It is too late to step off. We're going to go into some of the reasons for that. This is from the Biden campaign. Then listen to these words, and I'm going to elaborate on this further. The question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. Biden says, we have one job, and that job is to beat Donald Trump. We have 42 days to the Democratic Convention and 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump and hurts us. It is a time to come together, move forward as a unified party, and defeat Donald Trump. That's just one quote that I pulled from it. That snippet from that letter again, everybody, as they say, Stevie Wonder could see that Biden had an off night. It was more than an off night. So we're trying to determine is that an off night, or is that as an episode, or is that where we are now with the president? My point is this, and I don't know why we're not hearing this. Why are Democrats laying in the cut, not making this point? Whoever crafted this letter that I just read a snippet from, whoever crafted that, Joe Biden is a trained lawyer. He's been a public servant in the Senate, vice president, president for 50 years. But I want one person to tell me, do you think Joe Biden wrote that letter? And the letter is much longer, and it's along that same line. It's very sophisticated. Not saying that he does not have the ability, the acumen, not saying that he does not have the lucidity to do it, but we've heard him speak. That may or may not be his speaking. The point I'm trying to make is that whoever helped to craft that letter would be the same people who would stand by and be a part of the structure that makes the president the president. Now, if the other guy gets in, he's already demonstrated he won't bring military personnel. He won't bring trained politicos. He's going to bring in far right Steve Bannon kooks, who some are already in prison. He's going to pardon them. They'll be his advisors again, who will sit next to him. Who it won't be people who can tell him, Mr. President, you don't have the authority to do this. It won't people that say, Mr. President, that's a dangerous move militarily. Mr. President, we cannot do that. No, it'll be people who are crazier than he is that'll be around him. But the normal structure around a U.S. president, there's a cabinet, there's a legislature. There are caucuses within the legislature of his or her party that stands by him, that advises him. He may not ever have to make anything other than a State of the Union and make phone calls and do those things. There's a structure. I'd rather have an 81-year-old Joe Biden, and I'm not being partisan, than a 78-year-old crazy person who has already showed you what he can do. Remember, he's the same man who said that we could put bleach in our veins to get COVID out. Did y'all forget about that? It's the same man who almost died of COVID. It leaked out of the White House. So Democrats, stop your infighting. Bernard's got it right. It's too late to drop off now. It's too late to step off. What has to happen is that people have to coalesce around the candidate and come up with strategies and be surrogates. Get out on. It's time to get Barack, Michelle. It's time to get Bill Clinton out. It's time to get the best of your party, the best of independents. It's best to get the best of wise thinking people out. It's best to beat these suburbs. It's best to get everybody. Kennedy's not the answer. And I was a staunch believer in Robert F. Kennedy Sr. In fact, I thought he was the person who had left after Dr. King was killed. And tragically, he died 6 weeks later. He was killed 6 weeks later. His son, no, not the answer. Was he put in the race to help take votes away from Biden? Very likely. And Cornel West, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd say this about him. 15 years ago, he was a darling of our community. He was a bona fide freedom fighter. I don't know who bought him off to take votes from this president. All I know is that for 8 years, he and Travis Smiley whined and cried about anything Barack Obama did, from wearing a tan suit to trying to sing. Now, the Me Too movement caught you, Travis, and Dr. West, you have just become an embarrassment. You went from hero to somebody who's a persona non grata. And so a vote for those people is a wasted vote, and it's a vote for the orange man. So I'm calling on the Democratic Party, come together. If you can convince Joe Biden to step aside, you better have a candidate who can win in November. You better have. This man has earned the right. He has been here. He has done what needs to be done. When our backs were against the wall, he was the one who rescued us from COVID. He has put an African American, and for my brothers and sisters who say they're all corrupt, yeah, politics is a place of strange bedfellows. But I tell you this, you better pick the best of the choices. I would rather, I'm like Ronald Reagan. I'm like Jesse Jackson in 1988. He said, I'd rather have 1980. He said, I'd rather have Roosevelt in a wheelchair than Ronald Reagan on a white horse. And in this race, I'd rather have 81 Joseph Biden, who has a very capable Kamala Harris by his side and a great structure around him, than a crazy man who will have a whole White House full of crazies just seconds away from the bomb, and seconds away from pulling back our rights, and seconds away from doing things that would be detrimental to our democracy. Think. And one other thing, if you try to go outside of the structure and get around Kamala Harris, I don't care about her popularity. This is who they beat. They won in 2020. They're the standard bearers. They won the primary. This letter goes on to say they won the primaries. Anybody else had every right to run. I won't let one poor debate, if we didn't let it stop us from re-electing Barack Obama. And we saw what a good job he turned out to do. And he wasn't running against a crazy like President Biden is. President Biden, as sharp as he was 4 years ago, no. Were you sharp as you were 4 years ago if you're over 50? No. But does he have a support around him that can keep him, that can lean him up, can be a post around him? Absolutely, he does. So if you go outside of the structure and you resurrect somebody else to run, and you get around Kamala Harris, you're going to lose a whole lot of black votes. And you better be careful of that. That's all I'm going to say about that. The other thing I want to talk about, and we had a whole show, shout out to Roger P. Henson, who said it at the BET Awards. She said, that's right, Trump is his own counsel. And Lord have mercy with a counsel that's got to be. Taraji reminded us at the BET Awards that there's a thing that's called Project 2025. We did a whole show on it. Go back and look at the show, or go on the internet and look at the tenements of Project 2025. It gets rid of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which has been good. And when we talk about minority communities and low-income communities, there are more low-income, non-Black and Hispanic communities than there are. So it's not just a Black thing. Project 2025 is so extreme, it's so crazy, that the orange man is trying to distance himself from it. But he can't, because the very architects of that committee are people that served in his cabinet, people that are supporting him now. And if he's reelected, Project 2025, with the Supreme Court's decision on last week, which gives immunity. See, Biden messed up. When he came on, when we were about to sign on last Monday night, he came on and did an excellent 15-minute address the nation at 7:45, and he was off before 8. He didn't take any questions. He should have said, this is the very reason you need to put me back in the White House, and you need to elect people that will support us so that we can strengthen the Supreme Court and strengthen Congress, that we can get around some of the craziness that this Supreme Court is doing. See, Congress is still a branch of legislature, even though the Supreme Court punked them with that decision last week. If enough congressmen got around and changed the structure of the court or the numbers of justices on the court, if I was Biden, I would have said all of that. It's time to take the gloves off. The stakes are too high. This country will go back to being what it was in the 60s and the 50s. As far as we're concerned, Project 2025 is alt-right. The leader of it made this statement. He says it will be a bloodless revolution if the left allows it to be. Can you imagine that? A bloodless revolution, revolution if the left allows it? What does that mean? If the left resists, it won't be bloodless. Political violence. We saw enough of that on January 6, 2021. When a mob was given its okay from the White House, from the President of the United States, to go and do what they did, and was only angry at the Secret Service protecting him from going down there. Man, I'm gonna get my blood pressure down. Let me settle down. So I'm not going to recap Project 2025, but I'm going to go there. There are a lot of good highlights of it. It's a 200 plus page document. But I would ask you to please go back and look at some of the tenets of that. I guarantee you, if you're watching this show, it's unlikely that there's anything in that will pertain to your well-being. That's crazy, man. That's where we live. Listen, we got just a few more minutes. Give me some comments. Shoot some comments. I've been doing all the talking. Tell me what you're thinking. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you for that comment, man. We're trying, bro. We're trying. I just want to alarm the people. I was meeting with these seniors today, and I said, you know, I'm a democracy fellow for Faith in Florida. I'm gonna come out and say it. That's what I do. And what we do is educate and register people to vote. I am going under the trees this week, and I'm calling my brothers out. I'm not letting them off the hook by saying politics is corrupt, man. It don't mean nothing for us. And I'm going to say to them, look at where we are. This is too dangerous to flirt with talking about having the alternative to the president being in the White House. Listen, I've been around almost 70 years, and this president in 4 years has done a job with the divided Congress. He has done a superb job. The same Republicans that voted against the infrastructure bill, they're the ones who went back to their states and bragged as though they had brought that pork home when they voted against it. Now that it is passed, they're touting it and acting like they supported it all along. It's crazy. It's crazy. I got a few more minutes. I want to talk a little entertainment in the next few minutes. How many of you are friends of the television series Power? The Power universe has now been around for 10 years. The original program was Power, where Maury Harwick was the star, and Ghost. And I don't know, I almost felt it was a feminist thing, but she killed Lala off too. She killed all of the main characters off. So I'm talking about Courtney Kemp, the executive producer and the creator, along with 50 Cent. She killed 50's character off a couple years before the original series did. And those of us who love Power, somebody preach, you looking at Power? Yeah, y'all pray for me. I look at it, but I'm able to decipher what's real and to decipher what's godly and all of that. So just entertainment. I keep it in this box. When the series was killed off, I said, man, they just ended a great series. But what they did was they mutated it. They split it. They made Power Force. I mean, they made Power Book 2, Ghost, which featured, can't think of the kid's name right now, but he's Tariq, who played Ghost's son, who actually killed Ghost off the original Power. And man, that program that he put together, starring Mary J. Blige, Method Man, and others, has been amazingly just as good. He also had a prequel. 50 Cent, who was an executive producer, had his character. He was Kanan on the show. His character off the chain. They did a prequel, and this sister Patina Miller who plays his mother. I like to go back and look at these people on YouTube out of character. They are just amazing actors. So you had Ghost, starring I can't think of Tariq's real name, but you had him and Mary J and Method Man in that group. Then you had Force, which was Tommy Egan. Tommy moved to Chicago after Ghost was killed, and it took that program a minute to get off the ground, but it's been great the last 2 years. And Kanan came out to shoot good, the prequel. You want to look at a lot of good old cars, you see them on there. So shout out to that. But 50 is now taking Ghost off, and he's taking Force off. So both of those are going to end at the end of this calendar year. So we're going to look to see what he's going to do. What is he going to do with the Power Universe? Everybody says that he's going to resurrect the character of Ghost. We're going to see how that happens. We know 50 has moved on from Stars to the Fox network. So we're going to see how that moves on. But if you haven't, for the few dollars that Stars cost you, it is a very entertaining. The Power Universe, those 3 series are off the chain. And also, a lot of us look at All American. My son turned me on to that during the pandemic. It follows the what is it? Fiction. It takes Pastor Burrell, I got you. Yeah, it takes Daniel Ezra plays the lead character, who is Spencer, who was a blue chip athlete, and it's not the exact program, it's not exactly how it went in real life, but it's a character, and so they take bits and pieces and make it happen, and so we understand. And they even had a spinoff, All American Homecoming, that the CW network is going to take back because of their cutbacks. It premieres tonight because of the writer's strike. It's late premiering. It's going to be over after this season, and we understand some of the characters are going to go over to the other one. And Daniel Ezra, who played the main character, he himself will be coming off. So it's been some good. Now you're talking about Forrest Whitaker and Godfather of Harlem. That's awesome. We looked at that during the pandemic. I didn't even know it was still coming on. That is awesome. Yeah, there were a lot of great programs. They did a thing with Don Cornelius, Soul Train, that we just kind of were glued to during the pandemic. And man, Yellowstone, that was just horrible how that has turned out. Many of you saw I had a picture of Kevin Costner's house on the 13th hole there in Utah. We played golf out there during the summer, went out for a golf trip, and I shot a picture of his house from the 13th hole. I guess maybe it's his ex-wife's house now. But we came up. TV has a way of entertaining us with some pretty good products, and Godfather of Harlem was definitely an awesome program. But man, I'm telling y'all, Power is off the chain, and there's not too many TV programs you can look at and you just intense. I'm embarrassed to say that, but the whole time you just on pins and needles, and that's one of them. Listen, I want to thank y'all for popping in tonight and allowing us to pivot away from the show that was planned. That may be next week or maybe the following week, but we're going to talk about the craziness that's going on up in Duval. These young minds killing each other. That hit home in our family. And the recent death a few weeks ago of that rapper. We're going to talk about that. But for all of you who have been following Dialogue with Dozie for the past 4 years, man, our hats off to you. We love you. Go Giga Creation. You are simply the best. If I can quote Tina Turner, you're simply the best. And we're so thankful for you. And listen, we're going to be back here next Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. YouTube, Facebook, Dialogue with Dozie. We're out. We love you.